Dear ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in each of our lives when we are faced with a choice between allowing fear to rule our thoughts or allowing faith to guide our steps. Fear whispers the language of defeat. It tells you what could go wrong. It paints a picture of impossibility. But faith doesn't deny the reality of what you see. Faith declares the truth of what God has spoken over you. Faith lifts your head when fear tries to push it down. Faith calls you higher when fear tries to shrink your vision. And I want to tell you today, the greatest victories are found not in the absence of fear, but in choosing faith in the face of fear. Fear may knock on your door, but faith has to be the one who answers. Because when faith answers, fear flees. 10 key points of the speech: fear will always show up, but it doesn't have to stay. Faith is your invitation for courage to rise. Fear speaks limitations, but faith speaks possibilities. Fear focuses on the storm, but faith sees the Savior who calms the storm. Fear paralyzes action. Faith pushes you to take the first step forward. Fear magnifies problems. Faith magnifies God's power. Fear tells you what you can't do. Faith reminds you who you are called to be. Fear thrives in uncertainty. Faith thrives in trust. Fear may feel louder, but faith is stronger. Fear creates excuses. Faith creates testimonies. Fear fades, but faith always stands eternal. Fear will always show up. It's not a matter of asterisk if asterisk, but asterisk when asterisk. Life has a way of placing us in situations where uncertainty hangs heavy in the air, where the outcome isn't clear, and our hearts start to race with the question, asterisk, what if I'm not enough? What if I fail? What if I can't handle what's ahead of me? Asterisk fear shows up in those questions. It shows up in the late night thoughts that won't let you sleep, in the voice that tells you you're not qualified, not worthy, not strong enough. But just because fear shows up doesn't mean it gets to unpack its bags and live in your heart. Fear may knock on the door, but you get to decide whether to let it in. That's where faith steps in. Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is the refusal to let fear dictate the terms of your life. Faith says, asterisk, yes, I see the challenge. Yes, I feel the pressure, but I also believe in a power greater than what I can see. Asterisk faith is that inner conviction that reminds you that you've made it through storms before, and you'll make it through this one too. Faith is the anchor that steadies you when the winds of fear blow strong. Think about it. Fear thrives on exaggeration. It paints the worst-case scenario in bold colors, but it never paints the truth of what you are capable of. Faith, on the other hand, whispers a deeper reality. Faith doesn't deny that the giant in front of you is tall, but faith reminds you that giants fall. Faith doesn't ignore the walls around you, but faith declares that walls crumble. Faith doesn't close its eyes to problems, it simply opens its eyes wider to possibilities. Every single time fear knocks, it's an opportunity to strengthen your faith. Instead of giving fear permission to stay, you can choose to answer with faith, with courage, with conviction. You may feel afraid, but you don't have to live afraid. You may feel doubt, but you don't have to let doubt control your steps. Fear can visit, but faith has the final say. And when faith takes the lead, fear loses its grip, and your life starts moving toward the destiny you were always meant to walk in. Faith isn't just a belief you hold in your mind, it's a posture you carry in your heart. Fear thrives in uncertainty, but faith thrives in trust. When fear says, asterisk, you don't know what's coming next, asterisk, faith answers, asterisk, I don't need to know, I just need to trust the one who does. Asterisk, that's the shift. Because fear is always rooted in control, in the craving to manage outcomes, to guarantee results, to make sure nothing goes wrong. But life has a way of reminding us that we are not in control of every variable. And when you realize that, you're left with two options: either let fear consume you, or let faith sustain you. Faith sustains you by teaching you to walk even when the path isn't lit all the way. Think of walking through a dark hallway with just a lamp. You don't see the entire house, but you see enough for the next few steps. That's what faith does. It gives you just enough light for today, just enough hope for this moment, just enough strength for the next move. Fear demands the full blueprint, but faith says, asterisk, step forward and trust that more will be revealed as you move. Asterisk, and when you step out like that, something powerful happens. Your confidence begins to grow, not because the fear disappeared, but because your faith expanded beyond the reach of fear. So many times we pause, delay, or even give up because fear convinces us that everything has to be perfect before we begin. Fear tells you, asterisk, wait until you're stronger, wait until you have more resources, wait until you feel ready. Asterisk, but faith breaks that lie. Faith tells you, asterisk, go with what you have. Start where you are. Trust that the strength you need will meet you along the way. Asterisk, faith doesn't wait for the storm to stop. Before it sails, it moves forward, knowing that there's a greater hand guiding the waters. And here's the truth. Every time you choose faith over fear, you're not just surviving a moment, you're building resilience for the next. You're telling yourself, asterisk, I've seen what happens when I trust. I've seen doors open, I've seen strength rise in me I didn't even know I had. Asterisk, that memory becomes fuel, that history with faith becomes the proof you carry into future battles, so the next time fear rises, you don't crumble, you remember. You remember how faith held you before, and you know it will hold you again. Fear has a way of magnifying itself, doesn't it? It starts small, a whisper in your mind, a little hesitation in your spirit, and before you know it, it's painting pictures of the worst possible outcome. Fear tells you, asterisk, what if you fail? What if you're rejected? What if you lose everything? Asterisk, and the more you feed that voice, the louder it becomes, until suddenly you find yourself paralyzed, standing still, not because you can't move forward, but because fear convinced you that forward is dangerous. But here's what we often forget. Fear only has the power we grant it. Fear doesn't have substance on its own. It's a shadow, not a substance, and a shadow can only loom large if you give it your attention. Faith, on the other hand, shrinks fear down to size. It doesn't mean the danger isn't real. It doesn't mean the challenge isn't difficult, but it reframes the narrative. Faith says, asterisk, yes, the obstacle is real, but so is the strength inside of you. Yes, the unknown is intimidating, but so is the God who goes before you. Asterisk, fear magnifies what could go wrong. Faith magnifies what can go right. Fear asks, asterisk, what if? Asterisk, faith answers, asterisk, even if. Asterisk, even if it's hard, I'll keep moving. Even if I stumble, I'll rise again. Even if I don't have all the answers, I'll trust the one who does. That kind of faith doesn't ignore fear, but it refuses to bow down to it. Think of it like this. When you stand in front of a mirror and hold a small object close to your face, it looks bigger than it actually is. Fear works the same way. It positions itself so close to your vision that it blocks your perspective. But faith pulls your vision back, allowing you to see the bigger picture. And in that wider view, you realize fear is just one piece, not the whole story. That shift in perspective is often what separates those who stop in the middle of their journey from those who push through and finish strong. The truth is, fear isn't going away. If you wait until you feel no fear, you'll be waiting your entire life. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move anyway. It's choosing to believe that fear's threats are hollow compared to the promises of your faith. Every single person who has ever accomplished something significant didn't do it because they felt no fear. They did it because they decided fear would not have the final word, and the same is true for you. Fear will show up, yes. It will try to intimidate you, yes. But faith will remind you, asterisk, you are more than this moment. You are greater than this fear. You are built for more than what the enemy is whispering to you right now. Asterisk, when we talk about faith over fear, one of the most overlooked aspects is where we place our focus. Because whatever you magnify in your mind grows larger in your reality. If you constantly stare at your fears, they'll consume you. They'll expand until they feel overwhelming, like a giant you can't possibly defeat. But if you shift your focus, if you begin to put your energy, your thoughts, and your heart on the promises ahead instead of the problems in front, something powerful happens. Fear starts to lose its grip. It's not that the fear disappears, it's that faith grows stronger, and when faith grows, fear has no room left to dominate. Think of a camera lens. Whatever it zooms in on, that's what gets clarity, that's what fills the frame. If you zoom in on fear, that's all you'll see. But if you zoom in on faith, on hope, on the possibilities instead of the limitations, then your perspective begins to change. Suddenly, the thing that once looked impossible becomes a challenge you're ready to rise up against. Suddenly, the storm that once seemed like it would drown you begins to look like an opportunity to discover the power you carry inside. Your focus is the filter that shapes your life. And here's the truth. Your future doesn't depend on fear. It depends on faith. So, what are you zooming in on today? Too often, fear distracts us by exaggerating the size of the obstacles. It makes us so busy worrying about what might go wrong that we lose sight of what could go right. You've been called to greater things, but fear will whisper, stay where it's safe, don't take that step, don't risk being disappointed. Yet faith counters with a stronger voice, you're not called to safety, you're called to destiny. You're not meant to just survive, you're meant to thrive. And the more you focus on that truth, the louder it becomes, until it drowns out the lies of fear. When you shift your focus, you begin to walk differently. You no longer walk with hesitation, constantly second, guessing if you'll stumble. Instead, you walk with confidence, knowing that even if you do stumble, you'll rise again. You no longer see setbacks as proof that you should quit. You see them as setups for something greater. This is what happens when faith takes over the frame. You begin to see not just what is, but what can be. You begin to step into your life with expectation instead of anxiety, with courage instead of caution. And here's the beautiful thing, focus is a choice. You may not be able to control every thought that enters your mind, but you can choose which ones you dwell on. You can choose whether to feed fear or to feed faith. You can choose whether to magnify the darkness or to magnify the light, and whatever you feed will flourish. If you keep feeding fear, it will rule your decisions, but if you keep feeding faith, it will guide you into places fear could never take you. And when you look back one day, you'll realize that the breakthrough didn't come when the fear left. It came when your faith became greater than your fear. There comes a moment in every journey where faith demands action. It's not enough to simply say, I believe. At some point, you've got to step forward even while the fear is screaming in your ear. That's the tension we all face. Faith invites us to move, but fear begs us to stay. And if you wait until you feel no fear before you act, you'll wait your whole life. Fear will always try to find a reason to hold you back. It will tell you you're not ready, that you don't have what it takes, that the timing isn't right. But faith doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Faith steps out in spite of the storm. Faith says, I may not have it all figured out, but I know who walks with me. Taking action in faith doesn't mean the fear magically disappears. Sometimes you'll move forward with trembling hands, with a heart beating fast, with uncertainty in your chest. But that's exactly where courage is born, not in the absence of fear, but in the decision to move forward regardless. Every time you step through fear, you weaken its control. Every time you act in faith, you strengthen the voice of trust within you. Think about it. The walls of Jericho didn't fall because people stood still and wished for it. They marched. David didn't defeat Goliath by talking about how God could deliver him. He picked up a stone and ran to the battlefield. It was action rooted in faith that brought the victory. When you step forward in faith, you're sending a message not only to your circumstances but also to your own soul. You're declaring, I refuse to let fear dictate the course of my life. You're proving to yourself that your identity is not tied to your insecurity. And you begin to build a history with God, moments where you can look back and say, Asterisk, if he brought me through then, he'll bring me through now. Asterisk, that history becomes the fuel that keeps you stepping, even when fear tries to paralyze you again. Faith without action is just intention, but action breathes life into faith. It transforms belief into reality. It bridges the gap between the dream you carry and the destiny you're meant to walk into. And here's the truth. You don't have to know every detail of the outcome before you begin. You just have to be willing to start. Fear will always exaggerate the size of the unknown, but faith will remind you that even in the unknown, you're not alone. Fear focuses on what you lack, but faith points to what you have and who is with you. So the question is, are you going to let fear freeze you in place, or are you going to take that step? Because the step may not only change your life, it may inspire others who are watching you to rise as well. Your courage could be the spark for someone else's breakthrough. Your decision to act in faith might echo far beyond what you can see right now. And years from now, you'll look back and realize that the moment you chose to act, even while afraid, was the moment your future shifted forever.